He saved a dying alien cub. Now its gorgeous mother wants to repay him in strange ways. The forest was silent. But not in a peaceful way. It was the kind of silence that made you feel watched. Even when you were alone, Jace walked slowly through the tall, silver-blue trees, scanning the area with his tracker. He was cold, tired, and hungry, but he had to keep moving. His ship had crashed 2 days ago. It was supposed to be a short delivery run through a safe zone. Instead, a strange energy storm pulled him off course, and now he was stuck on an unknown alien planet. The good news? The air was breathable. The bad news? Everything else. Jace looked around for something edible. So far, all the plants were either glowing, spiky, or both. His stomach growled, but he ignored it. Survival came first. Food came later. Then he heard it. A soft, broken sound, like crying, but not human. Jace froze. His hands slowly reached for the stun pistol on his belt. He followed the sound, moving through the bushes carefully. The noise grew louder, sadder. It was coming from behind a large fallen tree. Jace stepped around it and saw it. A small creature lay on the ground, curled into a ball. It had thin, white fur, glowing blue eyes, and stripes on its back. Its ribs were showing. Its breathing was slow. It was no bigger than a house cat, a baby. Jace whispered, lowering his weapon. The cub looked up at him, scared but too weak to run. Its eyes met his, and something passed between them. Fear, pain, and trust. Jace sighed. "This is stupid," he muttered. But he took off his pack and pulled out a protein bar. He broke it in small pieces and placed them gently on the ground. The cub sniffed the food, then slowly licked it, its tiny tongue. Moved carefully, as if each bite was both strange and wonderful. Jace smiled, sitting down nearby. He didn't touch it, not yet. He just watched, letting it eat in peace. After a few minutes, the cub looked up again. Then, to his surprise, it crawled forward and curled up near his boots. "You're not scared anymore," he said softly. "You've got guts, little one." Jace picked it up gently, wrapping it in part of his jacket. It made a small noise, most like a purr. He carried it back to his shelter. A small crash pod half buried in dirt and vines. The solar battery barely worked, but it gave enough power for heat and light. Inside, Jace laid the cub on a folded blanket and gave it some water. It drank eagerly, then fell asleep beside the heater unit. Jace leaned against the wall and looked at the stars through the cracked window. He didn't know what this planet was. Didn't know if he'd ever leave it, but now he wasn't alone. That night, Jace woke up suddenly. Something was wrong. The forest was no longer silent. It was too quiet and naturally still. His AI assistant whispered in his ear, "Motion detected. Multiple heat signatures. Perimeter breach. 20 meters." Jace grabbed his stun pistol and checked the door. He couldn't see anything through the trees, but he felt it. Eyes watching, breath held. Something waiting in the dark. He turned to look at the cub. It was still asleep, but its ears twitched slightly. It sensed something too. Then a low growl echoed from the trees. Not a threat, a warning. Jace stepped outside slowly. Weapon ready, the moonlight showed large claw marks on a nearby tree. Fresh ones. He didn't fire. He didn't run. Instead, he whispered, "I helped your cub. If you're out there, I'm not your enemy." There was no answer, only the sound of the wind moving through the trees. But when Jace turned back to his shelter, there was a strange shape left by the door. Something placed there carefully. A piece of alien fruit glowing softly in the dark. Jace stared at it, confused. Then he looked toward the trees again. Someone, or something, had just said thank you. He picked up the fruit and brought it inside. As he sat down beside the sleeping cub, he couldn't stop thinking about the eyes watching him. Not with hate, but with interest. Tomorrow, He'd find out who, or what they, belonged to, and why the forest was no longer silent. Morning came slowly. Soft yellow light filtered through the alien trees, casting strange patterns across the crash site. Jace stretched and rubbed his eyes. The air was cool, quiet, but not peaceful. He stepped out of the shelter, stun pistol in hand. Something in the air felt heavy. He looked around carefully, checking the trees and the ground. The claw marks from last night were still there, fresh and deep, but nothing moved behind him. The small alien cub yawned and padded outside. It looked stronger this morning. Its eyes were brighter, its steps more confident. Jace smiled. "You're healing fast, little one," he said, crouching beside it. The cub rubbed against his leg and made a soft purring noise. Then it stopped, ears twitching. Nose in the air, Jace stood up, alert. The cub sniffed again, then suddenly ran forward, tail flicking with excitement. "Hey, wait!" Jace called, but it was already gone. He chased after it through the tall grass and thick roots. Branches scratched his arms as he ran. His boots slipped on wet moss, but he kept going. Then he saw it and stopped dead in his tracks. In the middle of the clearing stood a massive creature. She was tall, powerful, and graceful. Her fur was a deep silver gray, marked with glowing stripes. Her eyes were golden, watching him closely. Long, curved claws tipped her hands, but they were relaxed at her sides. The cub ran straight to her and nuzzled her leg. She bent down and sniffed it, then licked its head. Gently, a low sound came from her throat, some kind of alien hum. It was soft, full of emotion. Then she looked up at Jace. He froze, his weapon still in his hand. But her eyes weren't angry. They weren't hostile. They were curious. The mother stepped forward slowly, one step at a time. Jace didn't move. She stood just a few feet from him now, tall enough to look him directly in the eyes. Her gaze held no fear, just intelligence. Then, to his surprise, she bowed. Not fully, just a dip of her head and shoulders. But it was enough. Jace lowered his pistol. "I guess that means thank you," he said softly. The alien tigress blinked, then turned and walked away. The cub followed her into the forest, tail flicking behind. Jace stood there for a moment, shocked, then turned to walk back to the shelter. But when he reached the edge of the clearing, he stopped again. A pile of food lay on the ground. Not just fruit meat, nuts, clean water stored in carved leaf pots. It was an offering. She had brought it for him. Back in the shelter, Jace sat beside the heater and stared at the gifts. She understood, he whispered. She watched. She knew what I needed that night. He couldn't sleep, not because of fear, but because he felt something changing. This planet, this forest. It wasn't just a place anymore. It was watching, responding, thinking. The cub returned just before midnight. Alone, it curled beside Jace without fear. He stroked its fur gently. It purred louder than before. Then came the sound again, a soft rustle in the leaves. Jace turned toward the trees. This time, the tigress didn't hide. She stepped into the light of the moon, just far enough to be seen. She didn't speak, didn't move forward, just watched. And in her golden eyes, Jace saw something strange. A question, an invitation. She didn't want to hurt him. She didn't want to scare him. But she wanted something. And whatever it was, it had already begun. Jace sat at the edge of the campfire. The stars above were unfamiliar, distant, and cold. But tonight, he didn't feel so alone. The cub lay curled beside him, fast asleep, its tiny chest rising and falling slowly. Its fur had started to shine faintly, almost like it was glowing from inside. He guessed it was part of its species' natural healing. Either that or this planet really was full of strange surprises. Then he heard her again. Soft footsteps, almost silent. The tigress mother, tall and elegant, stepped out from the trees. She made no sound, no threat, just stood there under the moonlight. Golden eyes fixed on him. This time, Jace didn't reach for his weapon. He nodded slowly. "You keep watching me," he said. "Why?" She didn't answer with words. Instead, she moved forward. Slow and careful, in her clawed hand, she held something, a stone round, smooth, and glowing softly with green-blue light. She placed it gently on the ground near the fire, then stepped back, watching him with quiet expectation. Jace looked at the stone, puzzled. His AI blinked to life in his ear. Unknown object. Organic, radiating law-level energy. Possibly sentient. "Sentient," he whispered. "You mean alive?" The AI paused. "Not alive. But it's responding. Like it's feeling." Jace reached out and touched the stone. A warm pulse ran up his fingers like a heartbeat. And suddenly his vision blurred. He saw flashes, images not his own. A dark forest, burning. Screams in a language he couldn't understand. Then her, the tigress, holding her cub and running through the smoke. Jace pulled his hand back, breathing hard. The stone stopped glowing for a moment, then faded to a soft hum. He looked up, shocked. The tigress was still watching him, her ears slightly lowered, body tense. Like she wasn't sure if he would accept it or reject it. "You're sharing memories?" Jace said softly. "You wanted me to understand." The tigress nodded. "Just once." Jace picked up the stone again. Slower this time, let the images return. Now he saw her people tall, powerful, noble-looking, but there was war. An invasion. Her kind had been hunted, forced to flee. She had escaped with her cub, hiding deep in the forest, wounded, starving, alone, until the memories ended. Jace opened his eyes. The tigress had sat down near the fire now, still silent, but closer than before. "You lost everything," he whispered. "And now you think I saved what matters most." The cub stirred, yawned, then waddled over to its mother. It curled under her massive paw and fell asleep again, safe and warm. Jace leaned back and looked at the sky. This wasn't just a rescue. This was a bond, something deeper than words. They had connected through survival, through pain, and through trust. Later that night, as the fire burned low, the tigress stood and walked toward him again. She didn't bring a gift this time. Instead, she reached out slowly and touched his chest with one claw, not scratching, just tapping. Gently, then she touched her own chest. "Va, Shah," she said slowly, her voice deep and strange, but clear. Jace blinked. "Varasha. That's your name?" She nodded once, then pointed at him, tilting her head, waiting. He smiled. "Jace." She repeated it. J.Ace. Almost perfect. For the first time since landing here, he laughed, not because something was funny, but because something finally made sense. Names were a start, but this was more than language. It was connection. Varasha stood and began to walk back toward the forest. The cub followed, but turned to look at Jace one more time, then both vanished into the trees, silent as shadows. Jace stared at the spot where they disappeared. His heart was racing, but not from fear. Something had changed. He wasn't just a crash survivor anymore. He was part of something bigger, and he had no idea what would come next. But he knew one thing for sure. He would follow that bond, wherever it led. Jace stared at the glowing stone in his hand. Even though the vision had ended hours ago, his mind still echoed with images he couldn't forget. Varasha's past, her fear, her strength. He had felt it, not just seen it. It was unlike anything he had experienced before. Now, each time he looked at her, she didn't feel like a creature. She felt like a person, not human, but intelligent, aware, deep. That night, the forest around the shelter was quiet again. Too quiet. Jace sat outside with the cub lying on his lap. It had grown more confident, playful even, But tonight, it seemed. Nervous, its ears kept twitching, its tail wrapped tightly around its body. Jace scanned the trees. Something's out there, isn't it? He muttered. The cub made a soft chirp, then pressed closer to him. He could feel its tiny heart beating fast. Then movement, not Varasha, something else. Jace stood, slowly, pistol in hand. His eye came to life again. Unidentified, life form, stealth class, close proximity. Before he could react, a thin, dart-like object flew past his head. Hitting the tree behind him, it sizzled acid. Jace grabbed the cub and rolled behind a rock just as two more darts hit the ground beside him. Not good, he hissed, definitely. Not friendly. Then, from the shadows, a figure stepped out, tall, thin. Armored in bone-like plates, its eyes glowed orange, its mouth clicked open with sharp teeth. It held a strange weapon half-crossbow, half-parasite-looking thing. Jace fired his stun pistol. The blast hit the creature in the chest, tinned, stumbled, but didn't fall. Instead, it let out a strange screech, and two more stepped into view. He was outnumbered, outgunned, trapped. Then something roared loud, primal, powerful. Varasha? She leaped from the trees with terrifying speed. Her claws tore through the first attacker before it could react. The second tried to fire, but she knocked it flat with one swipe of her tail. The third ran, but Varasha didn't chase. She stood in front of Jace, shielding him with her body. Her teeth bared, her fur bristling. Jace held the cub tightly, heart racing. "You saved me," he whispered. Again, Varasha turned and looked at him. She didn't speak, but her eyes. They told him everything. "You saved my child. Now, I protect you." After the danger passed, she led him and the cub deeper into the forest. They walked in silence for some time, then came to a clearing filled with glowing flowers and soft mist. At the center was a circle of stones, each carved with alien symbols. Varasha touched one and sat down beside it. Jace followed slowly, the cub still in his arms. She reached toward the ground and drew in the dirt with one claw. Symbol-shaped images. At first, Jace didn't understand, but then it clicked. She was drawing her thoughts. Her story, a language made from memories, feelings, events. He watched her work. Saw her draw a small figure that was the cub, then a tall creature that was her, then a strange round one. Jace. She circled all three with one large loop. Family, together, bonded. Jace felt a lump rise in his throat. He reached down and drew something next to her, shapes a simple starship. Then a crack through it, his crash. Varasha watched and nodded slowly. She understood. She drew another shape beside it. A larger ship, dangerous hunters, the ones from earlier weren't alone. More were coming. Then she pointed at the cub, then at him. And then she pointed at herself, then at the stars above. She wasn't just protecting him now. She wanted him to go with them, to run, to leave the forest, to find safety somewhere far away. But Jace looked at the drawings again and shook his head. "I can't just leave without knowing what's going on," he said. "If they're hunting you." Why Varasha didn't answer. Instead, she placed her hand over his drawing of the ship. And then something strange happened. The dirt shimmered slightly. Jace blinked. The image had changed. It now showed his ship, but merged with alien symbols, his technology and hers. Together, he looked at her in surprise. "You want to help me? Repair my ship?" Varasha nodded once, slowly, but her eyes were serious, almost heavy. She wasn't just helping him escape. She was preparing him for something bigger. Something coming. The cub let out a small, sleepy sound. It curled up beside the stone circle and fell asleep. Jace sat beside it, his back resting against Varasha's arm. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Here, in this strange forest under an alien sky. Words weren't the only way to understand someone. Sometimes the deepest messages were shared through silence, through trust, through the bond of survival, and something told Jace. This was just the beginning. The days passed slowly. Each morning, Jace woke up to the sound of alien birds singing and the soft breathing of the cub curled beside him. Varasha was always nearby, sometimes watching from the shadows, sometimes sitting silently beside him. As the fire burned low, Jace was healing, not just his body, but his mind, for the first time since the crash. He didn't feel lost. He felt like he belonged, together. They had begun repairing the ship. His human tools and her strange energy stones were somehow working together. They didn't understand each other's science, but they didn't need to. They had trust. One night, as they worked under the stars, Varasha stood suddenly. Her ears twitched, eyes sharp. Then she growled a deep, dangerous sound. Jace froze. "What is it?" he whispered. The cub jumped into his arms, shaking. The forest had gone silent again. Too silent. Then his AI buzzed. Multiple hostiles detected. Heat signatures. Fast movement. Closing distance. Estimated contact. 90 seconds. Jace grabbed his weapon and backed toward the ship. Varasha crouched low, her claws sliding out, her tail flicking with tension. Then they appeared. 5 of them, the same species as before, thin, accommoded, hunters with glowing orange eyes. But these were different, more advanced, more dangerous. One of them stepped forward and hissed in a strange language. Varasha didn't answer with words. She leaped. The first hunter went down before it could move. Her claws ripped through its chest like paper, but the others reacted fast. Blades, darts, nets, they came from all sides. Jace fired his stun pistol. One hunter dropped. Twitching on the ground, another net flew past his head and hit a tree. Melting it with acid, Varasha moved like lightning, protecting Jace, protecting her cub, but even she couldn't stop them all. A dart hit her leg, poison. She staggered, snarling, blood dripping from the wound. Another net wrapped around her arm, pulling her down. Jace screamed, "No." He fired again and again, but they kept coming. Then something changed. The cub jumped from his arms and let out a piercing cry, high-pitched, almost musical. The hunters paused, confused. Then the ground beneath them shook, from the trees, glowing. Creatures began to appear, tall beasts with horns, light-based life forms. The forest had answered the cub's call. The hunters were no longer in control. They panicked, tried to run, but the forest closed in on them. Beasts tore through there. Rank spines wrapped around their legs, one by one. They were defeated, swallowed by the jungle they tried to conquer when it was over. Jace dropped to his knees beside Varasha. She was breathing hard, bleeding. Her body was strong, but not invincible. "No, no, stay with me," Jace said, pressing cloth to her wound. "Don't you dare leave now." His AI blinked. Critical injury. Poison detected. Immediate treatment required. Human medkits insufficient. Jace looked around then at the stone Varasha had given him before. The memory stone, he picked it up, unsure if it would help, but the moment it touched her fit. Glowed, the stone pulsed, and Varasha's body shimmered. The glow moved across her skin like living energy, healing slowly, not fully but enough. Her eyes opened, weak but focused. She looked at Jace and smiled, not with her mouth but with her eyes. "You, strong," she said. The words slow but real. "You protect." Like kin, Jace couldn't help but laugh. "Yeah. Well, you're not bad yourself." The cub crawled up beside them. Licking Varasha's face, she pulled it close, holding it tight with her strong arms. Then looked at Jace. "More will come," she said. "Stronger ones, cruel ones." Jace nodded slowly. I figured as much, he said. But next time, we'll be ready. He looked at his ship, half human tech, half alien magic. It was no longer just a way to escape. It was becoming something else, a weapon, a shield, a home, that night. As the three of them sat under the stars, the wind carried no fear. Only purpose. They weren't running anymore. They were preparing. The hunters had come, and they had lost. But the real danger hadn't arrived yet, and when it did, Jace, Varasha, and the cub would face it together as a pack. Asterisk, the sky turned red as the twin suns began to set. The forest, once filled with glowing creatures and strange sounds, now lay quiet. Too quiet. Jace sat beside the fire. Watching Varasha sleep, she looked strong on the outside, but he knew better. Underneath her thick silver fur, her body was struggling. The poison from the hunter's dart had slowed her healing. The energy from the memory stone had saved her life, yes, but only temporarily. Her breathing was shallow now, her movements weak, and her eyes, usually bright and alert, had gone dull. The cub sat curled beside her. Confused and scared, it nudged her with its small head, hoping she'd move. She didn't. Jace clenched his jaw, trying to stay calm. He had checked all his human medical supplies. None of them worked on alien biology. He had only one option left, one dangerous, untested idea. He opened the ship's storage bay and pulled out two devices. One was a portable fusion battery. The other was a neural link patchment for syncing with human machines, not for aliens, not for beings like Varasha. His AI warned him, merging human tech with alien bioenergy is unstable. Outcome unknown. Yeah, Jace whispered, but doing nothing. Guarantee she dies. He knelt beside Varasha, placing the battery gently near her chest. Then he applied the neural patch to the side of her head. The stone, the same memory stone that had bonded them before he placed over her heart. Jace took a deep breath and activated the link. At first nothing, then a flash of light. And pain, not hers. It shot through his mind like fire. He was seeing her memories again, but this time they weren't just visions. They were real. He felt her heartbeat slowing, felt the poison burning through her blood, felt her fear, not of death, but of leaving him and the cub alone. No, Jace growled, fighting the wave of pain. You're not giving up, not after everything. He poured his own energy into the link. His mind, his thoughts, his memories, moments from Earth laughter. Sunlight, oceans, music. He gave her something else to hold on to. Hope. The stone pulsed brighter. Varasha's chest rose sharply then again. Her eyes opened, glowing faintly. The link snapped. Jace fell backward, gasping, but Varasha sat up slowly, breathing deep, stronger than before. The cub let out a joyful chirp and leaped into her arms. She held it close, then turned to Jace. He looked pale, weak. The process had drained him, but he smiled. You're still here, he whispered. That's all that matters. Varasha crawled toward him, placing her large hand on his chest. She didn't speak, not right away. Then, softly, you gave life, she said. Yours. To me, Jace tried to laugh, but coughed instead. Yeah, well, I like having you around. She leaned her head against his for a moment. It wasn't just affectionate, was a promise. They were no longer allies. They were bound, soul to soul. But their peace didn't last long. That night, the forest lit up again, but not from fire. From signals, bright red beams shooting into the sky. Warning flares. Jace's AI spoke quickly. Multiple transmissions detected. Enemy ships inbound. 3 vessels. ETA 16 hours. Varasha stood, eyes narrowed. She already knew the hunters had failed, but now something worse was coming. The ones behind the hunters, the masters, the collectors. She turned to Jace and touched his ship. "Fly, leave." "Now," she said, but Jace shook his head. "No, I'm not leaving you." She looked at him firmly. "Must live. Protect Cub." Future Jace looked at the little creature sleeping near the engine module. Its chest rose and fell peacefully. It didn't know a war was coming, and maybe that's why it had to survive. Maybe that's why Jace couldn't walk away. He stood up and grabbed his tools. "If they're coming here, then they're not expecting a fight," he said. "I say we give them one." Varasha nodded slowly. Not with joy, but with pride. Side by side, they began preparing. This wasn't just about kindness anymore. This was about protecting something pure, something worth dying for, something worth fighting for. The price of kindness had already been paid, but what came next would demand everything. The stars looked different tonight, closer, sharper, like they were watching. But Jace wasn't looking up. He was focused on the ship, the one he had rebuilt with Varasha. Every wire, every panel, every system now carried a piece of both worlds. Human technology and alien energy, cold metal fused with living stone. The ship wasn't just a way out anymore. It was a symbol of survival, of connection, of trust. Inside the shelter, the Cub slept quietly, unaware that 3 enemy ships were tearing through the sky. Hours from landing, minutes from war, Varasha stood near the tree line, her claws glowing softly with the power from the bonding stone. Her eyes were locked on the horizon. She could feel them coming. They were called the Collector's Cold. Cruel, merciless. They didn't just hunt, they took. They stole beings from their worlds, stripped them of freedom, turned life into property. They had hunted her kind for years. Now they were here, and Jace. He still had a choice. He walked up beside her. Tired but steady, his body still weak from the energy transfer, but his spirit stronger than ever. "They'll scan the planet first," he said. "Then send drones, then troops." Varasha didn't respond. She just placed her hand on his shoulder. He looked at her. "I can leave. The ship's ready. I could take the Cub, escape, call for help." He paused, then added, "But you can't go with me. They'd track your energy signature before we even left orbit." Silence fell between them. Then she said softly, "You go. Save child." "Future." Jace's fists clenched. "And you? What about your future?" Varasha smiled a sad, quiet expression. "I already lived. Now I protect." Jace turned, staring at the ship. It hummed softly. Ready to launch, he imagined flying off this world, going back to Earth, telling his story, becoming famous. Safe, alive. But when he looked back at Varasha, he didn't see a creature, he saw family. And when he looked at the Cub, he saw hope. He couldn't run, not when someone had already risked everything for him. He stepped away from the ship and placed his hand on Varasha's. "We do this together," he said, "till the end." She stared at him for a long time, then nodded. Together, they set traps throughout the forest, dug pits, rigged energy mines, charged plasma bolts into trees. The ship was positioned high on the ridge, ready to evacuate the Cub if needed. Then they waited when the collectors arrived. They didn't speak, they didn't warn, they simply attacked. Drones came first, fast, silver, cold. Jace fired from the trees. Dropping 3 before they reached the ground, Varasha leaped from the branches, claws tearing through metal like paper. Then came the soldiers, tall, armored, emotionless, but not prepared for a mother's rage or a human's stubborn will. The battle was chaos. Trees burned, stones shattered. The air smelled of ash and metal. Jace was hit. Once in the leg, he screamed, but kept fighting. He saw Varasha take down a giant mech alone. Her body glowing with the full energy of their bond. They were winning until the main ship descended. Huge, dark, casting a shadow across the forest. A final wave of enemies dropped from the sky. Too many, too fast. Varasha turned to Jace, bleeding. Her voice was calm. "Now," she said. Jace understood. He ran back to the ship, grabbed the cub, who chirped in fear but trusted him completely. He placed it inside the cockpit, locked the controls, set the destination, and hit launch. The ship rose, fast and smooth. The cub looked out the window, eyes wide, watching its mother below. Varasha stood tall in the firelight, one final roar echoing through the sky, a roar not of defeat, but of choice. The ship vanished into the stars, and the world behind it went silent. 2 weeks later, Orbit Station Alpha Jace limped through the medical bay. His leg wrapped, his body bruised, but his heart steady. The cub sat on his shoulder, larger now, stronger. They had called it an unknown species, but Jace called it family. The officials wanted answers, wanted the story, wanted to take the cub away. Jace said no. He told them everything about the hunters, the forest, the bond. But when they asked about Varasha, he only said one thing. "She stayed behind," he whispered, "so the future could fly." And in his hand, he still carried a small, glowing stone, warm, pulsing gently, not dead, not silent, just waiting. Because some bonds never break. Not across space, not across time, and Jace knew deep down, this wasn't the end, it was just the beginning.